Today, a cyber outage grounds flights and disrupts operations around the world. Trump abandons his unity tone and recounts the attempt on his life in a bumper RNC speech, while there are still more questions than answers about the shooter. It's Friday, July 19th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes every weekday. I'm Tara Oakes in Liverpool. A global tech outage has had a widespread impact across multiple industries, with airlines halting flights, some broadcasters off air, and everything from banking to healthcare hit by system problems. That's Maria in Lisbon Airport. She said she doesn't know if she can fly out today. American, Delta, and United Airlines have grounded their planes, citing comms problems. The outage is linked to an issue at global cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, and the company has updated its technical support hotline.
CrowdStrike is aware of reports of crashes on Windows hosts related to the Falcon sensor.
Our Asia Day editor, Neil Fullick, was on duty when the outage hit.
It started in Australia. Some companies there started reporting problems with their computing systems, outages. The government acknowledged there was a problem. And then very quickly it snowballed globally. Major US airlines, American Airlines, Delta, United Airlines, for example, all issued ground stops citing communication problems. And then we quickly heard from companies in Asia, Europe, elsewhere, that broadcasters were off the air, trading floors weren't able to operate, and healthcare systems were hit, among many others. The problems seem to relate to a cybersecurity firm called CrowdStrike. The company sent an alert to its customers saying its Falcon sensor software was causing Microsoft Windows to crash following an update, and that it was working to roll that back.
And you can follow along to this breaking news story on Reuters.com and the Reuters app. It was the longest convention acceptance speech in US history. And former President Donald Trump initially had the audience at the Republican National Convention in the palm of his hand.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here.
Trump accepted the nomination for president and kicked off his convention remarks with a theme at odds with his typical stump speech: unity.
As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart.
But he swiftly pivoted to well-worn attacks on the Biden administration.
If you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States, think of it, the 10 worst, added them up, they will not have done the damage that Biden has done.
Alexandra Ulmer was there.
Big picture, the Republican Party emerges quite energized from this convention. The selection of J.D. Vance as Trump's running mate has really thrilled the base. It remains to be seen how he plays with those crucial independent voters in battleground states. But it definitely has marked a clear contrast with the Democratic Party, which is in disarray about whether and how to replace President Biden at the top of the ticket. We heard from lots of different speakers tonight, including Republican politicians and Trump's son, Eric Trump, but also an evangelical preacher and a former professional wrestler, Hulk Hogan. And then Trump took to the stage at about 9:30 p.m. and spoke for over an hour and a half, which was the longest speech ever. He began initially by recounting his assassination attempt on Saturday.
The crowd was confused because they thought I was dead, and there was great, great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out.
The speech then took a much more meandering tone, and delegates notably started looking at their phones more. Some trickled out, and the speech lost some of its energy.
While on stage, Trump was still wearing a large white bandage over his right ear. But he wasn't the only one in the arena sporting such a look.
What I got going on here is a patch over my right ear, as Donald Trump wears one.
That's Stacey Goodman, an Arizona delegate. She and others have been wearing ear bandages as a gesture of support. Fellow delegate Susan Ellsworth was also sporting one.
We're helping President Trump set a new fashion statement, and we're standing in solidarity with him for his wound, and we just want him to know how much we love him.
There's still much we don't know about how 20-year-old Thomas Crooks was able to open fire at Saturday's rally with an AR-15-style rifle. Reporter Gabriella Borta has spent the last few days in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, to speak with the shooter's classmates and teachers.
We've come up with this picture of a young man who was very quiet, kept to himself, did not raise any red flags. So he's really stumping law enforcement and journalists alike. However, there are media reports that yesterday the FBI went over some of the material they had found in Crooks's cell phones. He had 2 cell phones, and they saw that he had been searching for images of Trump and Biden, that he had been looking up the dates of Trump's appearances and the date of the Democratic National Convention. And he had appeared to have been searching for multiple major figures, not just Trump.
And we've since learned a bit about security lapses. What can you tell us?
There remain a lot of questions, and there is some finger pointing going on between the agencies. But next week, the director of the Secret Service is expected to testify before 2 separate House committees, I believe, as investigations get underway in Washington and lawmakers try to demand accountability for really one of the most glaring lapses in security in many years. Crooks had been flagged as suspicious by law enforcement that was covering the rally before he started firing his weapon around 6:11 p.m., according to a Reuters photographer who was there. And there are a lot of questions still that remain about why, if he was flagged as suspicious and bystanders saw him on the roof with a rifle, why he was not neutralized sooner, why he was allowed to have pretty much a direct sightline to graze the former president of the United States with a bullet.
Taiwan's foreign minister saying the country must rely on itself for its own defense. Lin Chia-lung says the island will likely keep upping its spending on its military in the face of the threat it faces from China. 2 large oil tankers were on fire on Friday in the waters near Singapore, the world's biggest refueling port. 2 crew members have been airlifted to hospital and others rescued by life rafts. The cause of the fire was not immediately clear. Protests in Bangladesh against quotas for government jobs have escalated. And TV news channels in the country were off air, with telecommunications widely disrupted. Nearly 24 people have been killed this week. Security personnel and emergency vehicles at the scene of a drone attack which hit central Tel Aviv. The attack was claimed by the Iran-backed Houthi militia. Initial reports suggest the drone was identified, but the sirens were not sounded due to human error. The top UN court will deliver an advisory opinion on Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories later today. The opinions of judges at the International Court of Justice are non-binding, but a clear finding that the occupation is illegal could weaken international support for Israel. Chinese officials acknowledged at the end of a key Communist Party meeting that their sweeping list of economic goals contained many complex contradictions. Pressure for deep changes in how the world's second-largest economy functions has risen this year, with consumer and business sentiment near record lows domestically, and global leaders increasingly concerned with China's export dominance. And if puzzling over the global economy is your thing, listen to our Econ World podcast with Carmel Crimmins. This week's is all about risk. Before we leave you for the weekend, Today's recommended read is actually a recommended view, a selection of rare photos of uncontacted tribes in a region on the borders of Brazil, Peru, and Bolivia. You can find a link for it in today's pod description. And tune in to our weekend episode too. On the front lines, Russia has been slowly making inroads as Ukraine struggles to hold them back. A shortage of ammunition, especially the 155mm artillery shell, is one of the key reasons. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. And to never miss an episode, subscribe on your favourite podcast player.